Hey guys, this is Fan Fantasy and we have an update for Gunner Heat PC for the month of June 2026. If you don't know what GHPC is, it is a sim-like Cold War tank game, which you can check out my previous videos on. And so let's go through the update. This update introduces a significant overhaul to AI behavior, which is the theme of this update. Over the past few years, one of the most common criticisms of Gunner Heat PC has always been the AI. And many of you have always commented on how weak the AI was, how predictable, and simply not very smart. And honestly, I agree. At the same time, I do understand from the developer's perspective that AI behavior is perhaps one of the more harder things to get right in a game, especially one that is focused on armored warfare. In one of my earlier videos this year, I talked about how gameplay needs to be improved, which is what I wanted to see in 2026. And this update does look like a major step in that direction. And so one of the biggest changes is that vehicle optics and sights now matter much more. Tanks equipped with thermal imaging will be able to detect and identify targets faster than vehicles relying on older optical sights. So in other words, older vehicles will have a harder time to see than, let's say, an M1 Abrams, which makes a lot of sense given the technology at the time. Target detection is also influenced by factors such as visibility and target size. For example, an M60 will likely spot a T-72 sitting in the open much more easily than, let's say, a BRDM, simply because the BRDM presents a much smaller target. Or if a vehicle is in partial defilé or in a hull down position, that will also affect the AI's vision. AI tanks will also react to sound, specifically the gun firing, which they'll take into account of the size of the weapon and where it's coming from. And so all of these things will influence how the AI will respond accordingly. Just like in this short clip here with the M2 Bradley as I try to flank around, his wingman, which I couldn't see, adjusted and killed me. It is also important to note that IR light beams in night missions are visible to the enemy and they will respond accordingly. It is an older existing system that they had for a while, but it is something to keep in mind as you're doing night missions to have light discipline. One of the most important change is the removal of the old instant spotting behavior. Previously, before this, the AI crews would seem to have some superhuman awareness. If an enemy tank is stationary and concealed near a tree line, an AI tank commander may struggle to detect it immediately, which means delaying contact reports and engagement. On the other hand, if the same tank starts to move across an open terrain or decides to fire its guns, the friendly commander will likely spot and react to that. So in short, you shouldn't be getting the instant spotting behavior. Concealment and fire discipline will also matter. Another change to behavior is that certain tanks and IV will take a moment to find their target, range find, and adjust their lead and elevation. A tank will take longer to fire if it's using a coincidence rangefinder or reticle adjustments like in the T-55s and T-62s. This is to reflect how older fire control systems are used rather than getting an instant aimbot gunner on an M60A1, unless you crank up the AI difficulty, which we'll talk about that later. But hopefully this should feel more realistic when you're fighting against older tanks. From what I've highlighted so far, this fundamentally changes how the game is played. The enemy AI situational awareness has gone up and increased, and no longer can you exploit your tactics by flanking behind them or doing some crazy maneuver around, as they'll be able to hear you and spot you. But as a player, you should definitely rely more on your own observation skills to locate enemy vehicles while also being more mindful of your own actions. From every shot fired, every movement across the open ground, or every exposure now has a greater chance of revealing your location to the enemy. So what I mean by that is that your actions do matter now. The enemy AI will respond accordingly, which means you should be using concealment when it does matter, or jockeying with your NATO tank. But do keep in mind that unlike previously, when you moved out of their line of sight, they'll quickly forget, but this time they'll remember your general location. But regardless, my general rule is always practice good habits and tactics regardless of the level of the AI. Another improvement is that AI controlled platoons have also received improvements. Platoon leaders can now react to incoming radio reports and will relay that information to their platoon. When contact report is received, the platoon leader may assign the subordinate vehicles to observe a specific threat in a general location. This means an enemy platoon that is defending may assign a section to dissipate where you're coming from. However, if enough time passes without confirmation or if a new information comes in, the platoon can shift its attention elsewhere. Of course, that platoon will respond to immediate threats if it is close by. To help players keep track of all the information, the devs have introduced a new UI that provides a much more detailed description of the contact reports. If this is all too much, GHPC now offers game difficulty settings, and that is done through a scale from 0 to 300%, 100 being the default settings. Of course, being able to customize is nice, but one thing I would like to see is being able to customize your own AI settings for your own team or for the Op4. But that's just something I would like to see. Just note that the devs aren't done with AI changes here, as they'll be working on more improvements, so do expect further changes and updates to it. And overall, this is a good start to improving the gameplay and especially AI, which has always been a constant nag for many. They also do have additional updates where they added terrain impact markings and decals to the ground. So now artillery rounds, HE, and sable rounds will certainly change the ground, as you can see right here. Another highlight is the changes to the Abrams fire control systems. Previously, if you were bouncing around rough terrain, the stabilizer could struggle to keep up, which resulted in your shots going to nowhere near where you're aiming. To help fix this, they've tightened up the fire control system, reducing the aiming errors by over 90%. But the downside is that you may have to occasionally hold the trigger a bit longer until the stabilizer catches up. Gun change should definitely be noticeable if you don't drive too crazy or fast. For now, it does seem like this is a temporary fix until they can find a good solution on it. And it does seem like they are looking for feedback, so do give them your thoughts. There's quite a lot of fixes and adjustments in this patch, but overall the theme of this update is AI behavior and improvements. And like I said before, it's not the final product yet, and they're gonna continue to improve balance and make changes. But overall, this is a good direction and a good step forward, as we badly do need improvements and features at this point. And so I am curious to hear your thoughts, and if you have noticed the big changes, if it's night and day for you guys, or if it got harder for you all. And so let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And my name is Fan Fantasy, and I do cover tactical and immersive games like Gunner Heat PC. And if you guys enjoy this, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in my next video.